We're doing a very bad job of teaching young people this, as far as I can tell. So like the guilt's there, right? The sense of original sin is there. The sense that we're responsible for the atrocity of history in some sense is there. That needs to be contended with. But we're constantly looking for easy ways out of the problem instead of actually trying to address it head on.
Well, let's start out with the first part in terms of this like sense of what we like in natural landscapes and we like life. And so I certainly have a version of this myself. I mean, I'm very obsessed with the ocean and I spend way more time outdoors than most people. And I think people underrate being outdoors a lot. And I love seeing different kinds of animals and their natural habitat. So like I definitely experience this. But when I think of it, then what I think about is, in impacting the earth, we want to make sure we impact the earth in a way that allows us to really enjoy this and in fact have more of it. There's a lot of things we can do to make the earth more beautiful and to enhance it with respect to our aesthetic sensibilities. And I think the best thinker ever in this regard was Frank Lloyd Wright. Because if you look at his buildings and how he approached it, he loved nature, but he also thought that we could improve nature. And that's really what you're doing as a human being, is you're saying, I can improve nature. So you're not hostile to nature, but you view it as what I call wild potential. It has the potential to be an amazing place for us. It has all these different building blocks and all these starting things, and some of them we want to preserve, some of them we want to change a lot, and even the things we want to preserve, we want to make a lot more accessible to everyone, which requires changing a lot. So I think of it as we can do an even better job at making the earth an amazing place to live. But part of that is recognizing we've done a really good job in a lot of ways. The earth is so much of a better place to live than it was 500 years ago, 200 years ago. The world is it's naturally dynamic, it's deficient, and it's dangerous. It's like those are three attributes. That's why I call it wild potential. And so human beings have had to contend with that. And to bring up fossil fuels, our basic way of contending with that is to try to produce a lot of value that nature doesn't produce for us. Nature produces not very much value that we can use, and it produces a lot of threats. So we need productive ability to create resources nature doesn't, including to create resources that neutralize the different threats, like creating irrigation to neutralize drought. And what we do that with our productive ability, but we're naturally very physically weak beings. And so the key step is using machines to produce far more value than our meager physical bodies can. And that's what we've done with fossil fuels. We've had cost-effective energy that has allowed, say, the average American to have 75 machine servants producing value so that we can do far more than we ever could. And we can do types of things that we never could. Like no number of human beings can fly. No number of human beings can be an incubator, which, incubators save millions of lives. So we've made the earth so much of a better place. And I think we can make it even more beautiful. And I think a lot of the specific things we create are ugly, and that's a shame. But I think of it as we've done a good job and we can do even better. Not that we're these sinners who ruin everything by touching it. That is a hostile view, and it's an unjustified view. So I think we can be more like Frank Lloyd Wright, but we should be proud of what we've done so far. And in terms of obligation, I mean, I feel gratitude for it. I don't feel like anyone has really sinned or I've sinned, but I feel like the obligation is to keep going, is to keep trying to make it better and better. And I think just by being a productive person, that's really what you're doing. But because I think about global issues, I try to advise people globally.
So let me ask you about this psychologically. So obviously there are a lot of people, particularly young people perhaps, who are bearing a heavy load of existential guilt for the fact of their very existence. And so you just made something approximating a pro-human case. And so I would ask you a psychological question. How do you think you've conducted yourself in your own life effectively so that sense of existential guilt, that potential hostility towards human endeavor itself or even human existence has been ameliorated? Like, what have you done that you believe is sufficiently valuable to justify the cost of your own existence?
But I guess Why would I don't understand why I would feel it in the first place, because the people who feel it have a very warped, at least the environmental version. We can talk about other versions, but the environmental/climate version is this very warped, delicate nurturer view of the earth, that the earth is stable, sufficient, and safe, and our impact ruins it. And if you believe that and you hear all this propaganda, then you think, yeah, we're all ruining the delicate nurturer. But if you have that view, it's a very damaging view, but I don't have the view. So I don't understand why I would feel so bad.
Yeah, but people, that's the thing, is that, and I think we need to contend with this, right? Because people do have that view, and lots of people have it, and it's easy, let's say, for educators who are pushing this ideological agenda to capitalize on the prevalence of that view. That's why I'm pointing to something like an intrinsic sense of original sin, is that we have this sense as human beings, or many people do, that in some real sense, we have to atone for the crime of our existence. And I think there's something to that. I think that we have to bear a moral burden that justifies the crime of our existence, so to speak. And that would mean that we have to be genuinely, well, in your terminology, we have to be genuinely productive people, let's say. We have to be genuinely productive people that are aiming up, maybe in relationship to such things as working for the amelioration of absolute poverty. Like, there is a moral calling there. And I think that part of it
I think of it differently.
Okay.
I think of it differently. So I think of existence as an opportunity. So I think of it as, it's just this amazingly special thing that, any of us exist in the first place. I mean, you can think about the probabilistic nature of it. And I feel like being on Earth is just this amazing opportunity. And you can look at how different people have handled that throughout history and how they handle it today. And I think a lot of people tragically haven't made the most of it, but I think you can see certain things that people do who have made the most of it and find it fulfilling. And for me, one of the observations is people who choose a certain kind of creative work. It makes a huge difference. I'm guessing you've experienced this. I've certainly experienced this in terms of just finding something that creates value in the world, that really works with how you like to use your mind, the thought process. Hopefully you get to work with certain kinds of people. I mean, that's just part of it, but there are all kinds of other opportunities of being alive. So I don't think of it at all as, we're guilty and this is bad. I think the only guilt is wasting the opportunity. That's where my kind of fear and guilt come in, is like, I worry about, did I waste the opportunity of being alive? And part of that is, of course, you don't want to live at the expense of others and ruin the world. That's another way of wasting it. But so I think of life as opportunity, not as atonement.
Well, right, and we could address there too the issue that if you conduct yourself successfully, so let's say that you are, as a consequence, prosperous, there is also this underlying presumption that's generally unexamined that you had to do that at someone else's expense, right? It's something like a zero-sum game. And that ties into this whole Malthusian view that we're yeast in a petri dish with finite resources. And the truth of the matter, I think, is that if you conduct yourself in the highest manner properly, then you end up being creatively productive in a manner that doesn't just benefit you selfishly, but simultaneously benefits many other people and also facilitates their ability to do the same thing. And so that's a vision of a kind of harmony that's a high order ethical calling, is you don't have to pursue your creative exploitation of possibility at the cost of the possibility or at the cost of other people. Quite the contrary. You could increase the possibility, which we could do on the natural front, and you could increase the ability of others to flourish simultaneously.
Yes, and I want to really highlight, because earlier you responded, you said all these people have been immersed in this, what I call this dogma, this delicate nurturer dogma. And I would add a piece to this dogma. It's the view that the earth is delicate nurturer, that's stable, sufficient, and safe. And then it goes along with what I call the parasite polluter view of human beings, which you're getting at with the Malthusian view. So the view that all we do with our impact is we take from the earth and we destroy it. We make it ugly, we disrupt it, and this kind of thing. And insofar as you view the world this way, you are gonna have a bad life and you're gonna be really unhappy because you're gonna feel really guilty and you're gonna feel really pessimistic and you're gonna believe in all of these apocalyptic scenarios. So it's why it's a fundamental thing that needs to be done to re-educate people about the basic nature of Earth and the basic nature of human beings, and replace so delicate nurture with what I call wild potential, and this parasite polluter view with what I call the producer improver view. We actually produce value, and we can improve the Earth, and we can do even more. And in Fossil Future, I talk about this as part of the human flourishing framework. A key part of how we have to think about this issue is change our view of human beings and Earth from an anti-human view to a pro-human view. And once you change that in people, it is life-changing, because it's their whole view of how the world works changes from this terribly sad and destructive view to a very optimistic view. And that's one of the things I'm grateful for, is early on, I learned pro-human environmental philosophy. And that was a huge gift that I got when I was 18.